We are a mere days away from the 2024 Prep Baseball Feature Games, an event that, with the changes to the recruiting process, has the potential to be an addition unlike any other when it comes to the abundance of talent and the number of coaches that will be at Lake Point Sports. But before we can look ahead, we have to look back here on Coffee and Curveballs. I'm Cory McCartney, along with Shooter Hunt, as always. And Shooter, let's go back to 2019 when we are all living that hot girl summer or something like that. But those Feature Games, the first at Lake Point Sports, provided a true testament to the work of Prep Baseball's boots in the ground when it came to the eventual star power that those in attendance saw hit the field.
Yeah, like you said there, the Future Games are the best event in prep amateur baseball. It is unfiltered, uncommitted, underclassmen, one place. It's a one-stop shop for recruiters, which makes it so exciting. For a long time, we were up in Indianapolis at the Great Grand Park facility. The move down in 2019, there are definitely differing sides on that movement to Lake Point, which actually ended up being a phenomenal decision because of what you're talking about right here, just how good that 2019 games were. And the cool thing about the Future Games, right? All these guys are uncommitted. Back in 2019, early recruiting was rampant. So a lot of the famous names were already off the board. And this set of games still had an incredible amount. There were 8 first rounders out of just specifically that game. I think there were over 15 guys who signed for more than $750,000 in the draft a couple years later. So the amount of talent that was there, but was very much unknown to the baseball world outside of, like you said, our boots on the ground, was fascinating.
So let's talk the guys who were the headliners from that group. You had Thomas White out of Massachusetts, who would be back for the 2020 Future Games, eventually picked in the first round in 2023 by the Marlins. Chase Petty from New Jersey, who a year later I watched hit triple digits at Lake Point during the area code games before he would be taken in the first round by the Twins in 2021 and then eventually traded to the Reds. And finally, Dylan Lesko, a first rounder by the Padres in 2022, who dazzled out of Georgia and was up to 92 in that event. I mean, even the top end of that, the guys that you saw perform that end, I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, and those 3 guys, those were probably the 3 kind of known guys, right? Thomas White was a super underclassman going up against a bunch of 2021s as a 23. We all kind of knew what to expect. This lefty from New England can really bring it. He looked the part there. Chase Petty had a great summer and sensational mover down the mound, ball exploding out of his hand. I think he pitched in either an 8 or 9 a.m. game there, probably destroyed some bats as always. And then Lesko was a 2022, so a bit younger. I think this was the first year where Georgia really had its full own team. Some really good underclassmen there that were able to come show up. He pitched in a night game against Florida. That was outstanding. But even dancing around the entire field. So there's quad groups. So 4 teams that are playing against each other. And I keep thinking about a guy like Mike Sirota, who had a great career so far at Northeastern. Is going to go in the draft. I'm thinking back, like, how do I not remember this kid as well? Oh, well, he had to go up against Thomas White. He had to go up against Caden Dana, who's playing in the Futures Games for minor league baseball coming up here soon. He had to go up against Jonathan Santucci, a lefty potential first rounder who was playing on Massachusetts. He was just rolling up against dudes. And I think kind of the 2 guys at the top who exploded at this, and great job from our guys in Oklahoma, but there was a little kid rummaging around, a 2022 left-handed hitter who was just on the barrel nonstop, guy by the name of Jackson Holiday. Now, we all know who that is now, but back then it was very new. He was still growing into his frame, but the swing really worked. And who was hopping on the bump when he wasn't playing shortstop? Jackson Jobe from Oklahoma, spinning 3,000 plus RPM, really wanted to be a shortstop. It was one of those looks where it was like, hey, buddy, that arm really works. I think he got a chance to be, I don't know if I would have said the number 3 pick, but that's what he went on to be.
Yeah, absolutely impressive. We talk about the top end, and you mentioned the sleepers. I mean, basically, this could serve as the foundation list for MLB Pipeline's top 100. And there's no hyperbole there. You mentioned Jackson Holiday, who's baseball's #1 prospect, repped Oklahoma, along with Jackson Jobe, who you mentioned, who's 11th. James Wood was part of the Team Mid-Atlantic, #2 on Pipeline's list. Georgia had Harry Ford, currently the number 23 prospect. You mentioned Caden Dana, 90th overall. He was, in a word, this was ridiculous.
Yeah, and the coolest thing for us, right? A lot of the guys, you're famous. You go on, everybody, it just hits you right in the face, right? This guy can hit home runs at 14. He's hitting the ball 500 feet. He's running a 6.5, 60. He's throwing 97 miles an hour. That's easy. An event like the Future Games, there's so much projection. You actually have to look, hey, what can this kid become? What is he now? Yes, but what can be there? And the perfect example of that, and a state that I think produces more late bloomers than any other, is Pennsylvania, who were two guys starting 3 of their games. Luke Holman, right-handed pitcher, Trey Yasevich. 2 guys who have a chance to go in the first round. Yasevich, probably a slam dunk first rounder at this point. Luke Holman, probably in that 30 to 40 range when we're looking forward. Those are 2 guys uncommitted, unknown. ECU comes in, they do a great job, gets Yasevich, and then Holman goes to Alabama and then eventually LSU. But you've talked about Caden Dana. He was a super underclassman, 2022, comes from a great baseball family. Both his brothers, professional baseball players, Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey. We kind of knew what to expect. Hey, this kid's got a chance. He's continued to explode, signed for 7 figures. Even beyond them, you talked about James Wood, who I think he goes back and forth with Jackson Holliday at this point as the number 1 prospect in baseball. But James Wood, you almost considered him a pitcher because the arm really worked on the mound, the swing. He's still growing into that frame, almost a baby giraffe. But obviously he's exploded since then. Who was behind him? Jackson Merrill, about 6'1", 6'2", $140, dripping wet. The swing really worked, but was he going to turn into that? A lot of guys looked at it and said, oh yeah, that guy's really good. I can remember talking to Chris Federer. He's now the pitching coach for the Tigers. Back then he was at Michigan and just comparing notes. And Jackson Merrill was on both of our lists. Hey, we like the projection, nice little swing from this guy. Did we know he's going to be a rookie all-star? I don't know about that. And then, I mean, those 2 guys from Mid-Atlantic, along with Griff O'Farrell, another guy who's going to be a day 1 pick at the University of Virginia. Talked about Santucci, Harry Ford. Honestly, the future games were his coming out party. Who is this dude behind the plate? Because the catch and throw is real. And then he, along with Bear Jones, were put on an absolute display at Lake Point. We've talked about it before. Cars were in all sorts of danger back there by where now your recording booth is. Billy Amick, another guy who has a chance to go in the first round out of Tennessee. He was with Team Carolinas back then, right-handed hitter, corner guy, especially those right guys who are corner players. Sometimes they can go overlooked a bit, but he was going to really hit. I love the way he brought it to the future games. Obviously, he's gone on to great things, has a great career ahead of him. And then you go over to Texas. Yeah. Max Ballou, Big 12 player of the year this year at UT. Has a chance next year, probably to be a first rounder, can really hit. Tyson Neighbors, he was out there going against Jackson Jobe to close out a game. Oklahoma versus Texas. You got Jobe spinning 3,000 plus. You got Tyson Neighbors coming up, dropping hammers in the back end. And then, Anthony Silva at shortstop, guy who's at TCU, draft eligible soft this year. If he goes back to school, we're talking about a kid who has a chance to be a first rounder next year. It's just so much talent on the field at this 2019 games. And I'm not even talking about a host of other guys. Nevada brought a team for the first time. They had multiple draft picks on that team, some really good arms. We could go on for so long about this games. I think in the end, they'll be close to 14 first rounders just from this event. Just a bunch of guys just a bunch of players who were not identified by the college guys yet. Our boots on the ground did a great job. Scouting directors bringing them in. It really was very fascinating to see just how good this event came, and it's only going to get better. You talked about 2023, especially with the new recruiting rules. Colleges are slow playing these 26s right now. I think there's going to be some really good talent there. Hopefully those guys are checking out those cheat sheets that I'll be putting out for this year, because they're going to want to hit the ground running because the talent's going to be through the roof.
Okay, so you talked about that long list of guys. We've talked about, this kind of being a testament to the boots on the ground work of prep baseball. But tell me what that list means to you when we're talking about those names, and to be able to be a part of this organization and see those kind of guys come into all basically become headliners in their own right, and adding to the depth and the legacy of the future games.
Well, I think it's important to consider their development curve, right? Everybody is on their own path. So when you see a Jackson Merrill at the future games, hey, this is a nice player, but the pots and pans are not being banged about. Oh, right now, this guy's an absolute mega guy. Oh my gosh, he's so good at 16. Look at what this guy. Some guys are going to be good at 16. Some will get better at 20. Some will take till they're 25. Some may click more 27, 28. They stay in the game. So I think that's what's so important, and why we present this opportunity to have close to 500 uncommitted players in one spot for college coaches to be. All that we can do is bring the players to the field. We can't play well for them. We can't force a college coach to give them a scholarship. It's just really cool to see the players want to go out there, compete, bring their A games, and really build a case for entering a program and competing at the highest level.
Within those 2019 games, I mean, you talk about the big pitching matchups that you had. Jackson Jobe against Tyson Neighbors with Oklahoma and Texas. Santucci against Dana closing out with Massachusetts and New Jersey. What do you remember specifically about those matchups unfolding and kind of how those have grown in stature?
Well, I really can remember Caden Dana going up against, I want to say he threw against the New York team. It may have been like Caden Dana, even against Massachusetts, because he's gone on, like I said, he's going to be going from future games to future games, or futures game. Just the upside that was there and just getting excited about this guy really moves. I think he's got a chance to click. I can remember Chase Petty throwing early in the morning. I think he broke a metal bat during that outing. And I think even more so looking back, it's the guys you miss, like circling back and saying, what were my notes on Trey Yasevich? Like big, strong kid. I know Sean Duncan with us. Yasevich was one of his favorite arms. He goes off to ECU, obviously turned into a first rounder, but checking notes, going back and saying, oh, what did I have on this guy? Oh, what did I have on Jackson Jobe? Oh, wow, nice swing. Has a chance to be a two-way guy at the next level. Oh, now he's going to be, a potential number one starter for the Tigers. Jackson Holiday, man, this guy can really hit. I think he's going to be a nice player. Just kind of some of those things, and it's fun to go back because there's just so many players. The more notes you can take out of that in 5-10 years to go back and say, hey, I really like this guy, or man, I really whiffed on that guy because he absolutely went off.
Well, it is a tough act to follow, and we will see if this year's feature games can live up to it. All eyes will be on Lake Point Sports July 24th through 28th, featuring the addition of the senior feature games division this year, which figures to add to the insane number of coaches that are already a fixture. And that shooter could make this year another that we're talking about for years to come.
And I think the senior edition was really important internally for us because we understood with the transfer portal has come into play, those 25s kind of had a tough time with the recruiting process. How do we commit more to the player? Because that's what we're about, right? In the end, we want to unite the player with the school, find them somewhere to play at the next level, because that's the best part for us when a kid, and I always talk about luck. What is luck? When opportunity meets preparation. Kid has been preparing for this moment, puts on a show at the right time in front of the right coaches, builds himself a case, and then gets himself a scholarship. So really excited for those senior future games. Obviously, the 2026 is getting after it, and along with the JFGs, the next wave.
Well, I know I can't wait. We will have plenty coming out of it here on Coffee and Curveballs. And of course, there'll be tons of coverage across all the prep baseball channels. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. That's Shooter Hunt, and we'll see you at the Diamond.